Excuse me, hello, this is Second Soundwave, and today I'll be reviewing a figure that I really should have reviewed a while ago. This is a guy I got same time I got G3X. This is SH Figuarts Kamen Rider Wizard Flame Dragon. Right now we're looking at the box. If I move back a bit. See, it's actually a pretty cool box. It's silver. It's not as plain as G3X's box was. I don't know if I even showed that one, but it was basically just flat silver with a black and white picture in the corner. But as you can see, it's got these sort of circular magic rings, magic circle, with the flame effect on it, and you know, this is the dragon's head up there, so it's like a circular dragon flame. Picture wizard down there, not a whole lot on the sides, picture the gems, stuff that he does, you know, pretty cool. So, get that out of the way. Here is Kamen Rider Wizard himself. Now, you might notice something different about this one, and this is that he actually comes with a stand. Finally, at long last, an SH Figuart with a stand, and it looks pretty cool actually. It's got, unfortunately can't really see this printing on it very well, but it says Wizard, Kamen Rider Wizard, Flame Dragon, and then it has the Flame Dragon logo on it, which fits because, you know, he's Wizard Flame Dragon, and he's flames and dragons and stuff. Now, I'm not going to switch out the hands in this guy at all during this review, because that is a pain in the butt to do, because this guy has super tight wrists. Like, really tight. And I've just put on a pair of hands I like, and I'm just going to keep them like that throughout the review, because it ain't fun to change hands in this guy. So, anyway, let me just get him into a little more neutral pose. Okay, so, detailing, you can see his head sculpt is absolutely fantastic. It's just, you know, I mean, it's got everything painted on that it should. His torso's great. He's got all the translucent plastic. He's got translucent yellow for the eyes there. The belt looks good. It has a tendency to get a little off-centered because it doesn't like to rest underneath this thing. But yeah, I love his shoulder pads. I like how they brought out the detailing with the black there. That looks so cool. He does have shoulders underneath there, of course. His hands are great. They painted on the rings, and they even painted on the back of the rings. And on this side, he does actually have a... Well, I thought he would have had a generic spell ring, but he actually has the driver on ring, which is weird, because I don't think that he ever actually has the driver on ring on when he's in really any of his forms. I mean, I could see him maybe having it on in Flame style, but I don't think he ever really jumps directly to Flame Dragons, so I could never really see why he'd have the driver on ring. I'd much prefer it if they just instead had the hands have like a generic spell ring on them. But anyway, moving down, you can see he got his cloak. He's got his very nice leg detailing underneath it. He has these Sentai style hips, which sort of pull down and then swing up. Some nice silver detailing, nice big feet. His cloak's kind of interesting in a four-piece thing, but actually it looks quite two-piece like when you look at it from a distance, and even when you have them spread out, it looks very natural, very flowing, and extremely accurate to the show. So yeah, his articulation's pretty good, and well, so let's take a closer look at his articulation. His head goes down quite far, it goes up really far, it goes side to side, it rotates, it does everything you'd want it to do. Even has like this weird sort of extending thing slightly. Shoulder pads go up, they are on their own swivel, which is kind of tough to tell, but it is there, and it's very thin, so I'm not going to try to move it too much. He has a sort of rotating thing here. He's got upward movement to about there. He's got a very nice swivel. Got a double elbow. And he has the usual Figuarts wrists. Torso movement. And this is what figure's problematic, because if you move the torso too much, the figure comes just clean in half. Which is a bit of an issue, but side to side movement's pretty good. He looks very nice. Let's see. Hips can be dropped down just like the Sentai hips. You can kick up to here, as you can see, almost unrestricted by the trench coat. Kicking back, again, not affected too badly by the trench coat. outward, not too badly affected. And these do have a tendency to stay out, but if you just press them back, they stay back. They actually are very moldable, and I haven't had any problems with them being stuck in any one position. For knees, like that, and again, Trenchcoat does a fantastic job of getting out of the way. His ankles are the usual Figuarts ankles. He's got nice toe bend. Basically, this guy's got everything you'd want for Figuart articulation. I mean, I was really impressed with this. I thought this cloak would be hindering all sorts of stuff. It doesn't. I honestly think his articulation wouldn't be that much better if he didn't have the whole trenchcoat thing. I mean, other than his waist popping off like that, and then the belt falling off, then you have to go find the belt, and then put that back on, and then sort of rest that on there as you try to find the joint for that. Other than that, his articulation is pretty much perfect. I have nothing to complain about here. Now let's move on to accessories. So first up, here's the hands. He has a pair of hands for his Showtime pose. He does have one of them already on him, so here's the other one. He's got a pair for, I guess, the other part of the Showtime pose. I'm not really sure. He has a lot of hands, so he has those open hands. Then he has a pair of normal relaxed open hands. And then he has the default fists. He has holding hands for his gun and sword, the wizard gun sword, and then he also has one of those on him. Here's the other one. And then he has a pair for holding the lower half of the sword for the wizard, lower half of the handle for the sword. So that way he can have it with both hands and stuff. So yeah, quite the hand count. Let's move on to the actual weapons. So here's the wizard sword gun in its gun mode, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It's painted in a beautiful silver. It's got little red details around the end. It's got some nice clear plastic. It looks like it could almost flip out, but it doesn't. It's just so realistically sculpted. It's amazing. More clear plastic down here. And here's something I didn't expect. The hand actually opens, so you can have him scan a ring against it, which might actually be what some of these hands are for. Although, unfortunately, he doesn't come with the sort of flat hands like this for scanning rings against the belt, which I thought he came with, but he unfortunately doesn't, and that's kind of a shame. But anyway, here's the sword, and the sword managed to be even cooler just because of how just viciously pointy this thing is. I mean, you could kill someone with this, and that's just so cool. I mean, it just has that just so realistic, so sharp, so just unmistakably a weapon. And if you look at it this way, you can see that the blade for the sword is actually a bit longer than it is in gun mode, just like in the show where it mysteriously changes size between props. You also get a version of his belt with the hand on the other side, should you want to have him changing styles instead of summoning spells. And finally, the great big final signature accessory of this guy, the dragon skull. And attaching this is very simple. You just switch out the chest plate. It's tabbed on. You just pull it off and switch it out with this. It's a bit tough to do. I find it's easier if you actually just remove the entire lower body of the figure as you're doing it. I didn't do it on screen because it's a bit finicky sometimes, though it went fairly smoothly this time. As you can see, this is actually the main reason he was given a stand, because in the show he kind of levitates in the air while he has this on, and you can kind of replicate that with him and have him like that. So that's pretty much why he comes to the stand. Because otherwise he's a fairly stable figure. It's just that because that's his one sort of signature pose, involves levitating, of course he kind of has to have a stand. Although I'm going to put him back on the ground. There. So, the head is very beautifully detailed. It's got lots of shiny paint, lots of clear plastic. The mouth opens farther than it needs to, and then closes. It's got a bit of up and down movement. It can't really turn or swivel side to side. But these can move, and they're ball joints, so they can move in and out just a bit. But for the most part, this is actually kind of a boring accessory, because with the wings for Hurricane Dragon, you can have him, in like a flying pose. With Land Dragon's claws, you can do all sorts of different fighting poses and stuff. But with Water Dragon's tail and Flame Dragon's head, skull, whatever it's called, this is kind of it. He kind of just stands there and flamethrowers people with it, and since this doesn't have any sort of flaming effect part to it, this is really all you can do with it. I mean, That's kind of it. It's kind of a one pose accessory. But still, it is pretty cool they included it, and I've actually done a few pretty cool pictures where I've had the head off, but off to the side, so it looks like it's just Wizard Dragon off screen. And it actually gives a really cool effect. So it is kind of cool that they included that, but I feel it's really mostly included for All Dragon. And speaking of All Dragon, you can actually remove the back, this little panel down here, the wrist cuffs, and that is so that you can attach the dragon parts from all the other dragon styles so that you can make Wizard All Dragon. I'm not going to show that because I don't have the other three as their web exclusives, and thus they're rather expensive for the same figure, practically the same, at least 4 times over. So I don't have the other ones. I don't plan on getting them at any point, but just so you know, if you have the others, you can put all the stuff on this guy. I think you can put all of them on any of them, actually, because I believe they all share the same mold. So yeah, anyway, let's get this guy back normal for some final thoughts. So, for some final thoughts on Wizard Flame Dragon, I think the sculpting on the figure is absolutely perfect. The paintwork is absolutely perfect. The joints are all great except for the wrists, which are way too tight. Weapons are fantastic. Both the wizard sword and the wizard gun, you'll notice I've switched it out for the sword now, so he's like a sort of running slashing pose, are great. It's cool that they included the second belt head, and I should mention that they've actually redesigned the connection system since the normal flame style, because that one had a notoriously awful belt connection. You'll notice now it's just got 2 pegs instead of whatever sorcery you had to do the other one to switch out the belt. Now, this is a figure a lot of people passed up on because the normal flame style was notoriously awful. The head was too big, the neck was too short, the waist would pop off even more so than it does on mine. This belt piece wouldn't stay on. It's just the list went on and on. There were just so many things wrong with it. And absolutely everyone hated it. But most, if not all, of those problems were addressed and fixed with Wizard Flame Dragon. This is an absolutely fantastic figure. It looks great. It poses great. It's just structurally great, except for the waist, which is a minimal issue at best. In fact, the biggest issue I have with it is the hand joints. But other than that, it is a fantastic figure. I mean, the only thing I would have done to change it would have been to maybe include a pair of hands that are shaped kind of like flat and L-like slightly, sort of like the ones that the normal flame style came with for scanning rings against his belt. I mean, if they're going to give you the belt in both positions, they should probably give you the hands for using it in either of those poses. But he already comes with like 12 hands, so I'm not really complaining because that's a lot of hands. And I find myself rarely using most of them simply because of how similar they are. That, and there's no real, I never feel inclined to change his hands because it's literally like pulling teeth to get them out. So, yeah. Anyway, like I said, absolutely fantastic figure. I don't know if I mentioned Articulation, but Articulation's great too. Yeah, get it. It is a great figure. You can get it for fairly cheap. I should absolutely recommend it. It is the most basic form of wizard that's not awful, and at the same time, it's also absolutely awesome. I don't have an Infinity style. I may get an Infinity style eventually just because I love this mold. This thing's absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. Go out and get one. It's that good.